Hey, welcome back to day 25, I think, or 26 of Project Me. Today's actually going to be a bit of a different video. Today we're actually going to reflect on yesterday's video. And the reason for that is that there was actually a very insightful yet scathing comment with a good objective analysis on yesterday's video. And I just want to talk about that comment actually, and while I don't think a lot of it was particularly relevant to me as a person and my circumstances, and that's not a way of just deflecting blame, I've thought a lot about this today. It does reflect, and a lot of the content in that comment shows this, it does reflect a failure on my part to properly articulate my circumstances, or to put in legalese, the facts of the case. And so what I want to talk about today is sort of talking about the general principles of that comment, which I think are really, really insightful and are still very good to talk about. Even if some of the specific nitpicks of that comment aren't relevant, I just want to focus on the general principles because they are still, really handy to reflect on, I think. And, first of all, I just want to say this to put all this in context. I am changing. I am trying to be better. It is rough, it is slow, it is repetitive, but I swear I'm trying. And that's, at the end of the day, what this series, this project of videos is meant to be. It's meant to be me reflecting on, me, and how I'm acting in my days, and how I'm perceiving what's going on around me, reflecting on that and trying to improve. So yesterday's comment, despite elements, most of the specifics being irrelevant to me, I think there's a lot of really good insight in there that I want to reflect on. So first of all, thank you to the commenter for that. You don't have to go read the comment, but you definitely could. I'll just cover what I think is very, very important here. So I've written notes. This is actually the first time in this series that I have written notes for this, just because the comment actually did really bother me, and we'll get into that later. But I wanted to make sure I had everything I wanted to say down. Just, a bit of a structure to follow. This isn't going to be like a defense video pointing out where I'm wrong. I'm just talking about where I can do better. It's not about finding culpability. It's just about being better. Right, so again, first of all, very thankful to that comment. I read it, it's quite a long one, it's actually a bit of an essay, but I read it quite a few times, and I rewatched the video again to try and see where they're coming from when they wrote that, and I definitely see where they did come from. And again, it just highlighted my failure to properly articulate what had really been going on. So a few misconceptions in that comment, but solely through my own fault. They took they took everything I said at face value, which is fair enough on YouTube, right? And again, I really appreciate that objective analysis, looking at it from, a bird's eye point of view, someone else's point of view, neutral, all that, really, really handy. But let's touch up on some of those general principles that they talked about. And so first one, active listening. Yeah, very wonderful skill. Was discussed in the context of networking and communication. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, listening is an art that requires attention over talent and spirit over ego. I learnt from a very young age that people's favorite subject is themselves. So asking questions in conversations and keeping the conversational spotlight on them has always been something that I've lived by. And active listening, you can always be better at it. There's always a better question to ask, some extra little nugget of golden information that you can dig up on someone to find out what they're passionate about, and it's really, really cool to see people's faces light up when you do bring up, conversations from a while ago where you mentioned, something personal to them, or even just remembering their name and using their name a lot. It means a lot to people. So active listening, first general point, I think is really important to talk about. Um, I feel like I do it quite well in my day-to-day life. Always be better, but I think that's a conversation for another time, another video perhaps. The second principle I want to talk about is that communication is important, and this was in the context of one being essentially stood up by someone I was going to go study with, and two, the flatmates not eating the dinner I prepared for them. And I thought a lot about this because this is where most of the comment was focused on. And in the comment, the principle was used to suggest that either situation that I just spoke of either would not have happened or would have been mitigated had I communicated better. That was the gist of the comment. And again, I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought a lot about this all day, actually. It really bothered me. Was there anything I could have done or could have communicated to make affairs run smoothly and avoid certain things altogether? Something I've really, really thought about. And if we focus firstly on being stood up for the study session, I don't think there was anything I could have done for that. And I say that quite confidently, having thought about it a lot now, because I told the person I was meeting that I would be not slightly, that's actually a mischaracterization. I told them that I would be late hours earlier, and they didn't open my message, and I kept them updated throughout the evening that where I was, whether I was on my way, etc., etc. So I kept them updated. They chose not to open my messages, and instead they messaged me today saying they decided instead to go to a different campus to study altogether. So I think it's fair in that circumstance to say that communication wasn't on me. That I will genuinely talk to them. I think I need to talk to them and say, hey, in the future, please just give me a heads up, at the very least. It's nothing stressful to think about, but it is just, it's a two-way relationship, I don't want to be sitting around and, sorry, let me rephrase that. They don't want to be sitting around, and I'm going to keep them updated if I'm going to be late. But likewise, I would expect the same if you're not going to show up, For the second event, the dinner, I thought a lot about this as well, and the commenter was absolutely right that I could have asked my flatmates to maybe switch nights with me for cooking, for all of us. And that's a very valid point, and quite possibly a failing on my behalf. That said, I don't think it was a very serious failing, having thought about it now, because I did give the flatmates plenty of warning, and of course I'm using ingredients that I know they'll like, so there's no risk of it being something they'll inherently dislike the food. Of course there's always the risk of someone disliking the food itself, but I think that was pretty minimized. But that's a pretty moot point, I think. I gave them plenty of notice. So I'm not sure communication would have served me better there. Of course I could have switched nights with them, but Wednesday's been my established night for a while, and I had the opportunity to still cook for them, and I did. It still would have been warm by the time they started eating, so not a huge failing on my part, just a failure on my part to articulate the circumstances around that, I think. And the third one that I think is actually really, really important to talk about is lowering expectations of other people. And the commenter hit this right on the head, I think. Really good point. It's something I definitely struggle with, and it frustrates me a lot, actually, because I can never quite find the right balance of what to expect for people. And I think this is going to be a lot of trial and error going forth. I just never know how much to expect. Like, obviously, I don't want to expect nothing at all from them, because that puts a lot of the burden on me, especially when things have to be done. And second of all, I don't want to put the burden too high, of course, because then, well, you're living a very dissatisfied life, and I can attest to that. But the question is, where do you find the balance? How much should you expect from other people? And that's something I think no one has a good answer for. It might very much be a judgment call, and the judgment call for everyone might just be very arbitrary, very trial and error, finding out what works for you, what are your boundaries, But it did make me think of this one beautiful scene from Blood Diamond, a fantastic movie, and I'm not going to give you context for the movie, but what I remember is that I actually wrote it down. My heart, for example, says that people are inherently good. My experience says otherwise. But people are just people. It's what they do that... I can't even read my own handwriting, it's so small. It's what they do that gives meaning to what they are. People will be people. Take that for what you will, but I think that's a very good way of looking at things. We're getting close to the end, or somewhat close. We're halfway through. We're done with the principles. But again, the overall lesson that I got from the comments was not to take things personally. That's something that I know not only I struggle with, but a lot of people in my generation. And we could talk for quite a while about what those causes may be and what caused that. But the comment, for all its really valuable insight, hit me really hard, and much harder than I had hoped, had anticipated. And it really plagued my mind throughout the day, actually. I ended up leaving campus early, which is something I've never done before because I couldn't focus. I was really, really grappling with some of the ideas in that comment, even though, I was just thinking too much about it, I think. Some really good insight, but thinking a little bit too much. And I'm not sure why it's something I struggled with so deeply, but if I were to take a stab in the dark, I would say it might be caused by my fear of inadequacy. And I've just got my sheet just to remind me of where I'm at. If there's one thing the comic got right, it's that I yearn for recognition. And I have this intrinsic need to be acknowledged, which is fueled by that fear of not being enough. In my mind, being recognized is a way to show myself that I do belong, and that I am enough, and I am sufficient for what I bring to the table. So being recognized is a way of feeling seen in that regard, even though it's like it's never ending. It's a never ending cycle. I'm never quite fulfilled enough. And it's something I've talked about before in another video, but it's probably worth talking about again as well going forward. But to tie it back to today, I guess I interpreted the comment, or at least parts of it, as wrongly, might I add. I interpreted it wrongly as an attack on my path forward. And the rational part of me is very thankful for the objective and candid way that the comment analysed what I said in the video. So rationally, I'm very thankful for that. Very, very thankful. The irrational part of me, very wrongly, believes that the comment is a sign that what I aim for is not enough, because I'm doing the wrong things right now, and therefore I'm inadequate. And naturally, that kind of kills the positivity a little bit, and it feels like I'm sacrificing my hands. It feels like I'm sacrificing my hands to others, but I'm considered selfish for wanting to keep my legs. That's how I felt, wrongly, might I add. But if we move on, if we look at this from an emotionally intelligent standpoint, we have this analysis. How can I acknowledge what I'm feeling and move past it in a healthy way? So I've got 6 action points for this that we're just going to go through briefly, and then we'll end the video. We're not going to do gratitude. Like, we will do gratitude today. Oh, we'll see how the time goes. But first of all, welcome the emotion, right? Because emotions, despite your first impression of them, they are there to help you survive, right? And I'm feeling a little bit stressed about it. I'm not quite happy with how I feel. That's okay. We're welcoming it. Number 2, become the emotion, right? Take a few deep breaths. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Just live in it for a few minutes. Number 3, name the emotion. Recognize and name it, because once you've identified it, it's not as scary anymore. And for me, I was struggling with this a bit earlier when I was trying to work through this process, these steps, because I couldn't quite name what emotion it was, and I'm still thinking about it actually. But I feel a little bit injured, hurt by that comment. Again, for good or not for good or wrongfully, I shouldn't be feeling like this, but I am, and we just need to move on and acknowledge it. So I'm feeling a bit hurt, injured. Number 4, befriend the emotion. Look at it with compassion and security. Emotions signal whether your needs are being met, and this is something I need to think more on. What needs have to be met for me not to feel hurt, and vice versa. But number 5, identify the need. Identify the need. Act on what will cancel out the negative effects, right? So how can I act to move past feeling hurt? And I think that's very much a mental shift, recognizing that that the comment isn't trying to hurt me, right? It's trying to be helpful. It's trying to provide valuable insight, and I am very grateful for that. And it's just a mindset shift of getting rid of feeling hurt and replacing it with gratefulness. Oh, sorry, my light turned off, my computer. And lastly, create actionable steps. Be action-oriented. And this is sort of what I try to accomplish with these videos, a way of talking about how I feel, and then, in a perfect world, analyzing them through an emotionally intelligent way. Got hair in my mouth, sorry. And moving on with actions. This is all very new to me, it's so, at least coming at it from this analysis standpoint. So it's something I need to be bored about and think on more. So I'm not going to say what I'm feeling straight away, but that's just how I feel. That's pretty much it for today. I'm going to do one huge vote of gratefulness, and that's to the commenter themselves. Really, really grateful that you did comment, and I said this in my reply as well. Just really, really grateful, man. Woman, sorry. Really, really grateful that you took the time out to point out all these flaws in what I said. And some of them may have been right, some of them may have been wrong. I'm trying really hard to take what I think is relevant on board without throwing away the irrelevant offhand, just very grateful. So seriously, I don't think you'll see this. I don't think you'll come across this again, but seriously, very thankful for the criticism, and its sincerity as well, its candor. Thank you, truly. That'll be it for today. So, listen, wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever it might be. Yeah, take care. Cheers, guys.